It's August. It's gonna be a great month. So, and I know I kind of looked at myself today, and I'm wearing kind of Halloween colors, but this is a pastel orange shirt. So black pants, multicolored shoes, and I thought that's pretty hilarious. So I should have told you that story from last week about the near death and destruction accident off a cliff. Reserved it for October, kind of like story time for Halloween, but no matter. Hopefully you gain some insight or lesson from that. But intuition, always watch out for signs. They're all over the place. You just have to be, aware. And I talked about awareness before. So I started reading David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me. I kind of been eyeballing it for a while, and I watched some interviews and some videos of him. He's an amazing guy, but how he tells his own life story. But then in his book, he but each chapter, as he advances in the story about his life, how he got to where he is today, he also adds a lesson at the end of the chapter. So I like that style of writing because it's instructive. He really wants the reader to gain something from it. I can tell by the style, and it's very down to earth and a very honest way of writing to chronicle his own life, but then to take those lessons, how he overcame so many obstacles, and actually what one of my psychology professors used to say, it becomes psychologically hardy. You build a mental strength over time, where it's pretty much limitless what we can do, but that you have to feed the mind a lot of that energy before doing anything. Otherwise, the mind will simply not allow the change. It will always default to its original programming. So basically, we fall back into old habits. But not for this guy. So I've been reading it. I think I'll be finishing it. Probably. I've been milking it. I should have finished it last weekend actually. I was reading it that quickly, but I wanted to stop for a little bit and then read some other books. But he talks about what I'm going to talk about today is accountability. And if you're just joining me, this is In the Pursuit of Joy podcast. Always trying to seek a way to get happier. And it only comes through self-transformation and improvement. So this is my life's journey as of January. I started this in March, actually, 2022. If you're new here, I appreciate you stopping in. And if you don't mind, if you can subscribe to my podcast, that would be even better. I also created I have a business, a coaching business online, also in person, but I have a YouTube channel, and I also added a travel blog because apparently peeps like to watch other peeps doing stuff. And actually, to take the podcast, because I do a dual broadcast every week. I do simultaneous broadcasting. I do the podcast. I do a video that also gets premiered on YouTube on my main channel, but also in the Pursuit of Joy podcast on the road, which is the travel podcast version. And it's all videos. I may interject a little bit of, lessons in between, going on a cruise or a road trip, trying to derive some sort of a learning point. But it's just really actually just getting out and enjoying life, and just actually discovering, meeting new people, finding new cultures, that sort of thing. So I'm trying to show an example of what other people can do, but they don't, because they feel that they're limited by whatever circumstances they have created, which we all do. Mainly time, lack of money, And then just trying to get all of you, and even myself, to wean ourselves from the habit of thinking with a sense of lack. So in thinking about accountability, he and I coach, and I've had coaches, and this is not a podcast. The topic's not about coaches or mentors, because I'm going to address that at some point soon, because I became conflicted about having a coach in the first place. After I commenced a relationship with two coaches, one I can study. He's got millions of followers, I'm sure, and I don't do one-on-one because they become so big. They become business people, and then there's just too much to handle students one-on-one anymore. So they do like I used to do, train the trainer, and then just bring in more talented people who are good at counseling and mentoring, and then have them do the work. And I like a long distance mentoring. It would be nice to have one-on-one all the time, and I did have that, but not to go further with this, but I had kind of a conflict views developed through my journey with this coach. And after I thought, I finally got in, I finally got a way to have somebody coach me, I found myself to be not coachable. And I'll probably address that in a couple more weeks to see what you think. It said, because going back to David Goggins' written work and Can't Hurt Me, and I've watched his interviews, even for Joe Rogan's interview from a few years back. He doesn't have a mentor. He's self-motivated, and a lot of the things that I do when I'm doing well, which I should do all the time, repetition. He talks about repetition. That I introduce working another video section in my YouTube channel, working from the goal, because this is what I teach. You have to step into the role before you become that person in the role. And he's self-motivated. He talks about that he doesn't have trainers. He does what he does because that's who he is. So for coaches, and I hear some coaches that are high profile, and they advertise that you need a coach. You need someone to teach you how to do this, teach you how to think. The stuff that I've been giving you for weeks and months on this podcast these are lessons that have to give you a pause so you can think and discover what you want to do and where you want to go. The how is, I agree with most coaches that the how am I going to do it? That should be none of your business at the time. You just have to make the decision that you want something. And then you take the necessary steps to get you closer and closer. You close in the distance between you and the goal and the outcome. So he talks about accountability, and it's a big trait in leadership. And this should be really a podcast tonight, episode about leadership. But I had a big lesson many years ago while I worked as a security contractor and during the war, and I had a lot of foreign national people under my that I managed and mentored and trained, and mostly in security, of course, but I had other people from other departments who did work in building fortifications and such. And I was in a particular camp where my manager at another larger camp had sold the job to me that, if you want your own camp, blah, blah, blah. And I was really looking to move up, yes, because I wanted to learn. And he sold it to me in such a way that I said, well, all I have to do is get on a helo and then just pack my bag, get on a helo and land there, and everything's already in place, which was true. But how in place it was when I got there is not exactly the way he painted it. All the safety features, from bunkers to the barriers, they were all in such levels of disrepair that they needed to be bulldozed and rebuilt. And I was really angry about that. So I got duped. Everything's in place. Yeah, it's in place, but it's destroyed. It's not there to protect anyone. Actually, they were safety hazards. And I had someone right off the bat, from the safety guy who doesn't do this for a living. He says, when can we expect this to be fixed? And I got into a hitsy fit about that. And so I told him, first of all, I don't work for you. And second, just got here. And the guy who was here before me, that person got away scot-free with not doing his job. And I just basically was replacing this person. And so I had a little bit of resentment going on there, but I learned a lot about accountability because a lot of people around me were not really accountable for anything. And I worked in security for many years, so these are my formative years. And I also had to learn it for myself. When you're strong and when you know things and when you have abilities, then people need you. And so I started to kind of soften my stance on what was going on at the time. And I decided to take one step at a time. I had to negotiate with management to try to get resources and manpower. And security is always the last one to get anything. And so it is a thankless profession. It really is. I mean, it can be rewarding, but it's mostly thankless. So is police work. You do there to be of help, and people don't appreciate it. Not bitterness in any way. I enjoy the work. I enjoy finding ways to protect and people and property, being creative, and I managed to make some connections to where I can finagle some workers here and there and start repairing the stuff the best I could. But of this group of people, they were all foreign nationals, so mostly we can be from either the Philippines, but these guys were mostly from India and Nepal. And the thing is about working in a multinational environment is that people bring their local problems with them to a completely different environment. They don't leave that at home. So if you're from the same town or village or whatever, and some British company came in and started hiring people, for jobs overseas. I go on cruises, so it's the same thing. These like companies that come either from Europe or the United States, and they hire people from Asia. They're hard workers. They're professional. They're not afraid to work. And this is usually a pool where they find people to hire. And it is a really strange world. It's also a dangerous world because a lot of times even people who have records can actually slip in, but that's a story for another time. In this case, I had a problem with a couple of guys that were harassing and just totally bullying and abusing and actually getting into physical confrontations with the rest of the men. And this workforces were all men. I'm saying I'm female in a mostly male-dominated environment, which is fine. I was used to that. But for these men, they lived in terror every day because this is kind of like the relationship of the town bully came along with them. They didn't leave him behind. And this guy wants to dominate. They're kind of like a mafia. He wanted to be the dominant figure, even in their living quarters, wanted to take money and property, and he's just simply not afraid to insult and berate and actually physically assault some of these guys. And they knew the consequences to fighting. Of course, like any other job, somebody gets caught fighting. That's usually a fireable offense anywhere you go, even in a first world country. Most jobs, if you get caught, slapping somebody across the face, that's going to carry some consequences. But here, there's no video and there's no other proof other than the look of terror in these guys' eyes when they came to me looking for a solution. For me, it would be to remove people from the camp, and that was pretty standard. But I would have to jump through hoops to prove to management that this person is a worker. So they have skills, and then you have to bring in somebody else who is not as skilled and train him from scratch, and they build all kinds of excuses not to get rid of the person. This happens, and like I said, in our country as well, it happens in every workplace. There's always somebody coddling their employees because they need the manpower. They're not willing to sacrifice someone, especially if they have a skill that's hard to find. But that person happens to be a bully. That person is a problem. And so I was kind of at a crossroads there because management was not really helping me out, and I had to solve it. But so management told me flat out, just go ahead and let the guy. I suggested pluck the guy out of there, these guys, and put them in separate quarters for at least a week, just to determine that's really what's happening here, because I'm not living with them, I'm not seeing it, and these things happen behind closed doors, and it's hard to prove, and I needed some time for observation, and you say no, it's perfectly fine, just let them be. They're just messing around. It's just men do that sometimes, and it's true, they pick on each other. So the women in close quarters, living with somebody that is not your family or a spouse, and it's crowded, and I know exactly the environment that we're living in. So another few days later, somebody else got punched and got beaten with a pipe, and it was our guy, our problem guy, trying to be the mob boss, and I'm seeing visible signs in a couple of guys that they had been assaulted, and coming from a medical background, I knew that this somebody used a hard object to hit them with, and so we were looking for the object, and naturally the culprit had done away with it. But then I had in this particular camp, I did not have any guards on that I supervised yet, so I was the one and only person who did the security. So I was more of a consultant, but they would not give me people to work for me. That's how tight it was at that particular camp. So you got to get creative sometimes, and it's either me and professionally I have to save face. Like, I don't want to save face, I just actually want to help people, and I had a hard time getting management to get in line with just removing these individuals. They did not want to fire them or discipline them in any way, and so after that second assault, then I could actually see that this isn't just guys just getting into an argument. This is pretty serious. That what happened with the management was that the person that was doing all of this, they got emboldened by the lack of action. And see, the one who looked bad was me, because I told him, just let him stay there overnight instead of removing him like I wanted to. So it was one time and one time only that actually followed a manager's. That is not my manager, it's the camp manager. My manager would be a security person who's in another location. So I'm on by myself here, and this was a remote site. So it will be about an hour, and it could be half a day by land transportation to get to and from the main base, and there was maybe about an hour and a half. Pretty much helicopter, from one base to another. So it's not like they can come right away, get in the truck, and come see me, and I can show my bosses, look, I need to remove this guy. You need to back me up. Also, there's another layer to that. It's good to always know, with accountability, when you call for help, you got to explain a lot of stuff, and immediately it's going to be, what have you done so far? And trying to avoid that question, that line of questioning, because it always leads to, it's your fault. I mean, it could be, and in that case, the guy's getting assaulted the second time, that was on me, because I should have pressed. I couldn't sleep. It bugged me to no end. Because if you see the look in this guy's eyes, like, what are you doing about it? And I said, my hands are tied. I mean, what else? I don't have any resources. Again, that wasn't a victim mentality, but it was more of a sense of inaction. What do I do? I mean, I'm still learning. I can't lead on to that, but I had plenty of experience as a police officer before that, and as a security manager at a facility, facilities here in the States, and I'm thinking, this is looking really bad. These are people that should feel, at least we're in a war zone, and on top of that, you have to have some peep from back home actually come over and follow you and take a job, and then you're sharing living quarters, and this guy is actually exacting violence on you, something that he probably did back home, and these guys were escaping. So there are too many variables to deal with, and that really made me uneasy, and I did lose some sleep over that. And I looked in the mirror, and when sometimes I can't figure out an answer to a question, I look directly into my eyes, and I say, find me a way to get out of this situation. um, find a good way to do this. So I was at the operations office, and I was making my rounds, basically just walking around the camp to see what I could catch. And this is the life, there's nothing else to do. And I was talking to the operations person, and we just got to chit-chatting a little bit, and I talked to their supervisor, and I had an idea. There was, once a week, there was kind of a shuttle, not quite a shuttle, but there was a transport. There was a helicopter ride that was scheduled once a week to get in and out of the camp. This is not like we had transportation come in every day. Once you got there, you were there for months. And that was normal. Everybody knew that. Unless you went on leave or somebody got sick and they had to be transported out, then of course this system would kick into place and we would get transportation for them. And it's all ruled by the military, so we have to go, whether we get transport in and out of camp or not, depending on what the Army had going on that day. So if it's operationally, it wasn't feasible to get that person out that day, then they would have to wait another 3 days. And on average, it was a 3-day wait. And sometimes you have to sit by the tarmac and just kind of with your bag in hand and just in a shady corner if you can find one. And you just waited and to be called to see if transport was available. So it's kind of a gamble. But once a week we would get not only that one helo, sometimes like the Catholic priest, the chaplain would come in like once a week, which is about the only time we got Catholic Mass at that particular camp. And he would be flown in, and it's usually on a Saturday, and sometimes I missed it because the guy, it's kind of unpredictable. So somebody told me that they had some people who needed their visas renewed. And I'm sure I'm going to go to hell for this. So nobody's helping me, and it's perfectly legal. I told through the labor supervisor to get a couple of certain individuals to come talk to us. And this guy was so bold, and he had this shitty smile on his face every time he talked to me because he knew he was getting away with murder practically, and there's nothing I could do about it, at least in his estimation. I couldn't catch him. I mean, I had some physical evidence and all that, but I couldn't catch him. I couldn't exact any kind of justice on this at all, not in a normal way. So the second in command and I were friends at the camp, not that the main manager. He was not cooperating at all. And I told him, I need to get this guy out of here because it's dangerous. This guy is actually, he's assaulting people, he steals. What else is going to be? We never know. And he said that we got that transport coming in, but also there was a list of people that needed to be put in the van to go to the airfield that week because they were scheduled to get their visas renewed. So it turns out that the two individuals, their visas had already expired. And we managed to put them on that shuttle, so they packed their bags and everything. They're happy, like, hey, you're going to get a free 1 week where you don't have to work because they have to sit there. They put them in like in a barracks, or it's a 40, it's a trailer where they have sleeping quarters, and then it's like a staging place where these workers had to wait. They would sleep until their paperwork came back and got approved, and they got their visas and all that, because we were in Iraq at the time, by the way. And so they have, all contractors have to go through this. And it turns out that these two peeps had their visas needed to be redone, and they just got on the transport, and they were really happy. Oh, you guys get a week off. You don't get to get work at all because they don't make them work the whole week that they're there. And so they went to the main base and put him on the van, passenger van, with a bunch of other guys, and I gave them my best beauty queen wave. And they were on their way to the airfield. And from the airfield, they got him on a helo and got him out of there. And we never got those guys back, is what I'm saying. So what happened was that the second manager that I was working with, he made some calls. I don't know what happened at the other end. I'm just saying that those visas were not renewed, and they were sent back home. Those guys were actually shipped home. um, when I waved them goodbye, the rest of the men had come out of their living quarters, and they were all standing in a big group, and I was smiling and I was waving at the guy, and they went away, and they kind of looked at me. I looked at them. I said, "Okay, he's not coming back." I just said in plain English. They all looked at me. They got really quiet. I said, "They're not coming back. They're going back home." They all looked at each other and just busted out laughing, and they were jumping up and down and high-fiving in every possible way to demonstrate their happiness that you're not going to have these problems anymore. And the day before, I did find a pipe. There was a pipe, and he had tossed it someplace around the camp, and I was snooping around and I found it. Also, I had listed the help of the people who do the cleaning. And you got to make friends with the people who clean, the ones that do the manual labor, because they see everything. They go into rooms, they empty trash. And so they were basically, my workforce in a way. You can call them spies, but they're eyes and ears. So all I did was just tell them the situation, and everybody wanted to help those guys out, and it turned out well. I mean, the embarrassment and that feeling you got from looking at this guy's eyes, he just 2-3 weeks prior, he had been assaulted and mercilessly by the bullies, and it was just a look of desperation in his eyes, like he did nothing, like what do we do now? And it just went through me. It went through straight to my soul. It's hard to describe that. It haunted me. It really did. He got in my head. He was. That whole situation took. It just set up a home in my mind, right? And it was living there rent free, and I had no way of evicting that feeling of failure. Really, it really pissed me off that this was happening, and I couldn't stop it. So, at the other end, it was purely administrative. It was more like they were demobilized. I don't know how that was arranged, but these guys were sent out. But they didn't know. The whole idea was to use the ruse that their visas needed to be upgraded or something, and put them in the transport and got them on the helo, and then flew them away and got them off the camp, which is the only thing I wanted to. I didn't care what they ended up. And sometimes people cause trouble and come back to another camp, and then you get reassigned to camp and you see them, and I would recognize all the bad guys. I would go straight to the military and tell them, these guys, keep an eye on them and find a way to help me get them out of here. They're a problem. And, I learned over time how to use the resources, but in the beginning, no, I had no idea. But I had to hold myself accountable. And this looking in the mirror is not something new to me. But going back to David Goggins' book, he talks about he calls it the accountability mirror. Every time he screwed up, he would go in front of that mirror, any mirror, go home and just lecture himself and just read himself practically the riot act on how he had lacked courage or initiative or he was guilty of inaction, just like I was. Ignorance can only get you so far. It's not an excuse. It's a reason it's good reason to grow and to learn. And I did. I did grow a great deal at that camp. I hated it. I was very isolated. I had very little support, and if I complained, like I said, in victim mentality, then that place, if I complained, it was very little, and it had to be very extreme. Like, I have a big problem here. I would have to talk to the people. You have to find useful and helpful people on the way, and it worked out for me. I turned out to be pretty good at what I did, and I ended up getting a bigger camp, and then I ended up getting more people to work under me, so I didn't have to do all the patrolling and all the work. But it starts out flaky, and then at some point you've been kind of duped. But going from being duped to creating awareness and being aware of dissatisfaction and then wanting to fix a problem, I went through all those stages. I didn't really enumerate them in any way. I wasn't really keeping tabs on that. But I told myself I had to get my act together, because if people didn't trust me for this one thing, when there was really, really big trouble, and then they don't want to trust security, and there's a problem with this profession, is that like they don't like police. Somebody who's protector, but then you see them more as someone who's in the way. Security is always an inconvenience. It's what is it? Like the saying goes, a necessary evil, but it's not an evil. It's just awareness of how you can protect yourselves and property. It's pretty simple when you break it down. But my own accountability journey had commenced because I really didn't need the main manager's input on that one. I go to him because I was their main consultant for security, and they're supposed to listen. They listen. Sometimes they take action. Sometimes they go no, and then you have to go to battle and take your ideas with them about improving security, and you have to go back and forth, and then you have to defend your position. Basically, it's a strategy. You always in this profession always having to fight for funding or resources and personnel, and that's why I call it a thankless profession, because everybody wants security. When they get in trouble, they call somebody. They don't care how it works, what it takes to put it all together. They just want to know that when they actually do need it, they want it in place, and they want it in place immediately. So this is. So I'm very gratified in reading this book in the past couple of weeks, and I don't want to finish it. I'm working on another book, but it has been really enjoyable. I have it on Audible. I'm not saying that I'm cheap, but Amazon gave me 3 months of Audible free to try it again. It's not like my first time I've done this, but I downloaded the book, which has other commentary, so I listened to it in the car, and it's very uplifting. Just holding ourselves accountable, owning our mistakes, and owning our struggle, and our desire to grow and improve should definitely have been the first stage. So this is your 10th transformative lesson, is that you have to own everything you do. The mirror lesson, I'm going to give you a freebie on this one. If you're big on manual arts, if you want to do a sign, you can print one. You can do one with color pencils, whatever it is you want to do, and tape it off to your mirror, the mirror in your bathroom, and you can say, success starts here, and put some arrows, and look at the reflection of yourself in the mirror. And this is where it all begins. So I did a lot of screaming and a lot of growling at the mirror. I've used the mirrors for other things. He uses it as a reinforcement tool. And he's not the only one, but he doesn't have a coach. So he's kind of like me. I'm not saying that I'm uncoachable. I'm saying that for the things that I find of great value, I've always managed to be self motivating, and that's a good trait to develop. So if there's nobody around to give you props for anything that you do that's positive in your growth, your journey, then you should create some of that space just to motivate yourself. And if the mirror work is something that you're willing to do, just when you have a problem and you kind of stuck, just talk to yourself. You look in the mirror and just send a command as the man of yourself that I need this idea to come through. Give me some ideas. Clear your head and talk to yourself. It works really well because you have to take charge of everything you do. You have to take ownership, and you really have to understand that everything begins and ends with you. So that in those one tale of I almost lost face, and I'm not saying I'm going to be fired, but I'm just saying that if people don't trust you and what you do, then you're not effective. And that would have that dropped me of some joy for about a week, because you can't see somebody in the eyes, tell them you've done nothing. You got to come up with ideas. So previous week has been the victim. I've tried nothing and I'm out of ideas attitude, and I just want to complain I have no ideas. I have to create solutions, and I have to see the bigger picture. And I'm definitely the part of the equation that can bring it all in together. But first I have to, like I said again, I have to own the entire situation. I did not start the fights or that, but the solution, once it reaches your ears and your consciousness, that you have to make a decision quickly, how you're going to move and how you're going to use resources and talk to people. And so this is where growth comes from. So I want to leave you with that thought this week, and look in the mirror. Also, while you're primping up, and that's a good thing. Why do you think we look in the mirror? And it's got nothing to do because, well, if you're putting on mascara, you have to know where to put it. That's kind of a no-brainer there. But you're reinforcing your love of self and your appreciation for your life, because it's not just about the body that we have, but the mind that inhabits it and the spirit that inhabits that body deserves positive reinforcement. This is what you're feeding. The body does what the mind tells it to do, so there's no way of separating the two. And so where the mind tells you to go, the body goes. And accountability is something that most of us don't think about, that we have to make ourselves responsible and accept that we are definitely where our success or failures come from. So it has to be born someplace, and it's usually up here, up in our heads. So that was that kind of a bad story with a good ending. So was last week. Didn't crash into a big fireball. I never ruminated on that for a long time, and then I just kind of thought, maybe I should just get out of this line of work altogether. The idea is to pay attention to what the universe is telling you. You'll be a whole lot happier for it. And this is a little bit short tonight. There is, I think what's the next challenge? I don't even know what I'm doing. I think the Wounded Warrior has a swimming challenge this month. It's 15 miles, just like the one for the American Cancer Society that I did in July. I completed that in 8 days. I'm getting a nasty bug in my head about perhaps doing this month as well to raise funds for the Wounded Warrior Foundation, but to cut the time. So if I did it in 8 days, I may do it in half of that. I don't know. I do crazy stuff like that sometimes just to challenge myself. But this is all about growth, and it makes me happy because I don't raise a lot of money. That would be another point to raise here of awareness, is that if I swim it too quickly, then people are not going to be interested in putting money into support a particular cause. So I'm kind of debating on it. I don't want to take like the whole month to do 15 miles. So a lot of these challenges are more for me. But if I raise a little bit of money for a cause, then that's great, and it draws attention to a particular cause. I'm one more person to help. So probably have some sort of a yay or nay information for you on that next week. I have to find I haven't signed up for it, and I know it's the first. Normally when I do a challenge, I'm already ready to go and got my goggles on, and I'm just jumping in the pool. But I'm going to hold off a little bit to see how this turns out, and I'm thinking about coming up with a strategy. This one worked much better than last year's, where I swam less often, but I put more mileage per swim session, and I actually structured it in a way that I could eat and then just rest enough in between takes. So, I mean, the last one was 4.6 in one day, but I had to split it into 2 sessions so I could take an hour and a half and eat and just rest my muscles, and then I warmed up again and then jumped back in the pool, and that worked out really well. And I brought some supplements and all that. So we'll see. Everything we do should be about strategy, and this is going to be mine. And I'm going to let you lovely listeners go. That's all I got this week. It's going to be an exciting month. I got to plan something for a trip. July was kind of more of a local. The swimming kind of kept me grounded in town, and I have some work scheduling that has to be rearranged in August as well. But we'll see where I'll go in August, because I'm itching to do a road trip and do something. Take this show on the road. So we shall see. And I bid you good night. Those of you who were just stopping by for the first time, I appreciate you. Thanks for stopping in. Don't forget to subscribe. I have a YouTube channel. The name is the same as this audio podcast, and that will help me out a whole lot. I'm trying to get 1,000 subscribers to my YouTube channel. If you would be, I would be honored if I could have you go to my channel and press the button. That way, you know when the next trip that I take, then you'll get that notification on your email. And I bid you good night. This is In the Pursuit of Joy. Pretty joyful today. It's August. Halfway to the, well beyond past the halfway point on this year. It has been good. In the Pursuit of Joy podcast, I will see you next Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. Good night.